Today, we are digging deep into the Trump phenomenon. We're going to look at the psychology that makes his support so incredibly strong, and then we'll break down the political strategy that puts it all into action. Everything we're talking about is based on original source analysis, so let's get right into it. You know that feeling, right? That instant gut reaction you have to a political leader. It happens almost before you can think, but man, is it powerful. And it's really, really hard to shake. So what is actually going on inside our heads in that exact moment? Well, to really understand that gut feeling, we've got to look at how our brains are wired. It turns out those snap judgments, they're not random at all. They're actually a core feature of how we're built to make sense of the world around us. Okay, so there's actually a term for this in political psychology, automaticity. You can basically think of it as your brain's autopilot. Way down below the surface of your conscious thoughts, your brain is just making these rapid-fire judgments about people, about ideas. It's like it forms an opinion before you've even had a chance to consciously think it through. And what drives that initial reaction? Something called hot cognition. And the theory here is actually pretty simple. Your first response to a political figure isn't rational, it's emotional. That first feeling, whether it's good or bad, then acts like a filter for everything that comes after. We feel first, and then our brain goes to work finding reasons to justify that feeling. So what this all boils down to is that we're all walking around with these two different systems for thinking. You've got the fast, emotional, intuitive system, that's the autopilot, and then you have the slow, deliberate, analytical system that you have to consciously turn on. The thing is, that fast system, it almost always gets out of the gate first, and it sets the stage for everything else. And check this out, it gets even more specific. Data-driven studies are now starting to link our specific cognitive traits directly to our political ideologies. For instance, some research suggests a link between conservatism and more caution when making decisions. Meanwhile, dogmatism has been associated with being slower to gather evidence. The big takeaway here is that our deep-seated thinking styles and our political beliefs seem to be fundamentally tangled up together. Okay, so we've got the brain science down. Now, how does this actually play out in the real world? Let's look at how this connects to a very specific political style. Because as it turns out, some ways of communicating are pretty much tailor-made to tap directly into that fast emotional system we were just talking about. So scholars describe the modern presidency as being hyper-rhetorical. I mean, think about it. With a 24/7 news cycle, there is this immense, relentless pressure on a leader to always be talking, to have a take on absolutely everything, all the time. And that pressure creates a real incentive for a certain kind of communication style, direct, continuous, and often unfiltered. And this is a perfect example. Remember at rallies when Trump would sometimes pull a supporter up on stage? An improvisational moment like that completely sidesteps all the traditional political messaging. It's not about a 5-point policy plan. It's about creating a direct, emotional connection. It's a really powerful way to speak to that automatic processing system, building a bond that feels incredibly authentic and personal to his base. Now, what's so fascinating is seeing how this isn't just about rallies and rhetoric. We're going to see how that style, that powerful slogan, America First, moved from the campaign chill to become the actual official framework for an entire administration's national security doctrine. Right here, this is the official 2017 National Security Strategy, and it was built on 4 pillars. Protect the American people, promote American prosperity, preserve peace through strength, and advance American influence. I mean, you can see it right there. Each one is a direct translation of that America First ideology, recentering the entire U.S. foreign policy on explicitly national interests. All right, so that's what happened in the past. But where could all of this lead in a potential second term? Now, based on analysis from various foreign policy experts, we can start to sketch out a hypothetical future for what this America First doctrine could look like. One of the big ideas that keeps popping up in these analyses is this concept of a new Monroe Doctrine. It's a callback to that 19th century policy that basically told European powers to stay out of the Americas. This new version would be a huge strategic shift. The focus would move away from global competition with countries like Russia and China, and instead turn inward toward consolidating American influence right here in the Western Hemisphere, its own backyard. And you can really see how this might unfold in this hypothetical timeline, which has been pieced together from various source documents. It imagines a sequence of events, starting with direct talks with Russia over Ukraine, then moving to a summit, and culminating in a brand new national defense strategy that officially makes the Western Hemisphere the #1 priority. So what's the end game here? Well, according to some of these foreign policy experts, it boils down to this: a new world order, based on what they call realism. It's often described as a might is right kind of world, where the globe is effectively carved up into spheres of influence, with major powers like the US, Russia, and China each managing their own domain.
Okay, all of this leads us to the big final question, and it's maybe the most important one. Is the Trump phenomenon really about one individual leader? Or does it signal a deeper, more systemic shift in the very nature of modern politics?
So, underlying a lot of this is a pretty specific constitutional idea. It's called the unitary executive theory. You can think of it as a CEO model of the presidency. The people who believe in this argue that the president should have total, complete control over the executive branch, including the unrestricted power to hire and fire officials. They see any law that limits that power as just plain unconstitutional. But there's another way to look at all this. Some analysts argue that this goes way beyond just constitutional theory. They suggest that the political system itself, with its insane media pressure and the impossible expectations we put on leaders, actually creates the incentives for this exact style of leadership. The argument here is that the problem isn't just one person. It's the environment that any modern president has to survive in. So we're going to leave you with this final thought to chew on. Is a political style that relies on instinct, on improvisation, and on forging a direct emotional connection with the public. Is that an anomaly, a bug in the system, or is it an inevitable feature, the natural outcome of all the psychological and political pressures that any leader in our modern world is going to face?